It's going, if you can't tell. Welcome to this episode of Small Bike Stuff. This has taken way longer than it should have, but we've actually got a Honda C100 sitting in front of me. Now that name does cause confusion with a lot of people because the C100 instantly makes people think about CC ratings, and it's not 100cc, it's just the first Supercubs from 58 till about 67 or something like this. I think this is 66. They came out with a frame number starting with C100, and then they also made a C102, which is an electric start 6-volt version. This is 6-volt as well, and the big difference between these ones is they've got the pushrod engine, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, this thing here was picked up within New Zealand's borders for relatively cheap, seems to have been sold here new, and was on the road until 1990. And yeah, it's currently on a road, like technically, but it's not road legal, and it's going to be going through what we call a recompliance process, but I'm not going to get into that with this video. Let's go have a look at step number one, the engine. So under here, we're already seeing something that we haven't really seen before on these Hondas, or Hondas of this vintage, I haven't anyway. These little this bash guard, which is kind of plastic or like cover. But immediately, if you are familiar with the overhead valve, the overhead cam, versions of these engines, you'll see the head looks a bit different, and that's because this is pushrod. You've got a cam down here in the base of the engine, you've got push rods, and they're operating the valves at the top of the engine here. Now, this is a 3-speed 50cc pushrod engine. Over here you've got your carburetor sticking in the side there, and lighting's not the best. I've chosen a bit of a terrible spot to film, but that's my own fault. And the side cover there is slightly different if you're used to the later Honda C50s, C70s, C90s, and similar engines. You've got this kind of very pronounced jut out here behind the clutch cover. This will be the clutch behind here. Kickstart only, and the electric start ones, I don't actually believe they have a kick. I think they are electric only, or some came out electric and kick, some came out electric only. And yeah, this is kind of blanked off on the electric start version. They've got a much skinnier pipe as well, which is kind of all part of the engine package there than the later Honda C50s did that have the overhead cam. All right, getting my terminology right. So that's your engine there, 50cc push rod. Supposedly these things can push out like 65, 70 kilometers when they're running in good nick. So wheels, 17-inch front and rear. I mean, this is Honda standard. This is kind of the whole thing they designed this bike around, was having a bigger wheel stance compared to other bikes traditionally of the time that often had different sizes, or 16s or 15s or whatever, and skinny 17-inch rubber was really not around until Honda made the first Supercubs. And the knobbly tyres literally didn't exist when they made the trail bike as well, which I've filmed a Honda trail bike recently. So they had to specifically make those because Honda made a product that demanded it. 2.25 by 17s. These are, it says Nitto, holy crap, it's an old Nitto tyre. So it's got air in it from whenever this tyre was put on. Whether that's what came on it, probably not. But the rear's definitely been replaced, at least because it looks different. And by differently, I mean I have no confirmation of that. It just looks a little bit different. It looks somewhat newer. It's not new enough to have a date stamp on there, but it's a Chengshin tyre made in Taiwan, 2.5 by 17. So you've got the wide stance at the back with the skinny front. Drum brake front and rear. Nothing too special to talk about with the brakes. This thing here is not exactly the same as the control section on a Honda C50 as opposed to the C100. They're a lot narrower, and the pressed steel here is kind of, well, it is pressed steel on the other ones too. Some of the very later ones did get a plastic cover, I believe, on the top. No, possibly the bottom and the top was steel. But on the left here, I believe this is probably your lights on and off.
High, park, low.
Yeah, sweet. High, park and low. And then you've also got your right and left turn signal, which obviously does not auto cancel. Apart from that, you've got a brake here, a brake there, obviously front, rear. And then when we come down to this side, we've just got our stepper shifter. So this is the gearbox that gets a lot of people confused because it's one on the back shifter, or the heel shifter, or the heel side, I guess is the best way to say it. One down to first gear, and then you've got to push down on this one to go into neutral, and then through neutral into second, and then third. So once you get used to it, it's really easy, but it's like almost like a 1 down, 2 up technically. But apart from that, the only other control stuff that's worth mentioning is probably these lights that they phased out by the late 60s. As soon as this stopped being a C100 and turned into a C50, these disappeared. And these are probably one of the most aesthetic tail lights on any small bike that came out. And even the turn signals, and the tail light itself as well as aesthetic. It's much smaller than you see on the later C50s, 70s and 90s. The headlight is also smaller. If you go online and buy a Honda C50 headlight, it'll be bigger than this. So they do have a much smaller headlight. Probably should have mentioned the leading link suspension. So when you put the front brake on, the whole front kind of lifts up, and it takes a bit of effort to get used to, but yeah, it's not terrible. I mean, it's drum brakes front and rear, so you just hold on and hope, really. It's kind of your only choice. So obviously from the factory, this thing had this is the famous blue livery. It would have had a real popping blue, like that would have obviously been a lot shinier. And the leg shield itself obviously wouldn't have been broken, but I mean, it's got battle scars throughout the years, but it still works. Is that there? See, Honda Motorcycle Co., manufactured in Japan. There's actually a really interesting video if you want to see how these are put together. It's called This Is Honda, and they made it in 1962, which would have been the same process they used on this, but they're building the C102 with the electric start. I'll inlay some clips of it over here, and hopefully Honda don't take the video down. But yeah, that's super interesting. And if you want to learn about how this bike was turned into a trail bike, I've also got another video on my channel about a guy called Herb Yule who took these, put knobbly tires on them, removed the leg shield, put different exhausts on them, and essentially a massive rear sprocket, and just went up into the hills. And Honda got wind of this. Long story short, the Honda CT, a Honda trail bike, exists. So I guess from here, we just need to start it up. Alright, startup video. I'm just trying to work around these guys riding dirt bikes and doing wheelies beside me, but we'll see if I get this. Maybe not. I'll hold fire. He's coming. So, don't know why I was bothering to find top dead center. Anyway, it's going if you can't tell. You should also hear the sewing machine engine. So as you can see, yeah, on the pipe there, it's just been cut at the tip, which gives it actually a louder tone than they would have had stock, but still not that loud. It's enough engine action for one day. Let's go for a hoon. My microphone's not working properly. Oh, yes. Honda. Yeah, that's full hoon. I've got to do a push start. The clutch plates are a bit stuck at the moment. Find our speed, top speed. Okay, speed test. We'll go down the end or in second. Hopefully second is good for turning. Yeah, I've got enough torque to take off again. It's going to be a rolling start. Now I'll probably take it towards absolute limit. Well, that woke it up. What did we get? 55.6. It's fastest this thing has been, apart from on the back of a ute, since sometime in the 90s maybe. Anyway, it goes really well, and that's basically a C100. It's a Honda Supercub, but it's got a pushrod engine, so not a massive amount different, just a whole lot different. Alright, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.